Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click and scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend because, hey, it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
And thank you, Jess, for that introduction, for covering all of that stuff. I want to welcome everybody here today to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast Triple Threat: When Ransomware Hits Healthcare and How to Defend Your Organization. I am Keith Ward. I am the guy there on the right that you see. I am your moderator for this event, and I am really looking forward to this vertical today, where we learn about the crucial topic of healthcare and ransomware, and how ransomware is impacting healthcare in such an enormous and frightening way, to be quite honest. Now, you've already met Jess, and you're going to hear from our other moderator, Scott Becker, here in just 1 minute. So for this event, not only do we have great content, we have also got great prizes. We have got three $300 Amazon gift cards that I will be awarding after every single presentation for. So stay tuned for those. Those are coming up. And with that, why don't we dive into the fun stuff? All right, what do you say? It's time to kick this off with an overview of the ransomware space and how it's affecting the healthcare field. Like I said before, this is going to be an interview with Scott Becker, who is going to be talking to ransomware Uber expert Alan Liska. Alan is one of the leading lights in the field. He is in demand as a writer and speaker, and he always provides such great knowledge. So let's dive in and get this going. Scott, you and Alan are up.
Well, Alan, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
I thank you for having me. This is always an important conversation, so I'm glad to be part of it.
Absolutely. So what have you seen in ransomware in healthcare settings in 2023?
So it's been really bad this year. Recorded Future has tracked more than 270 ransomware attacks against healthcare providers in 2023 alone. And that is just the publicly reported attacks. The real number is probably a lot higher because most ransomware attacks don't get reported.
And how does that compare to what you saw in 2021 or 2022?
So in all of 2022, we recorded 245 ransomware attacks against healthcare providers. So we're already ahead of 2022. And then in 2021, which was the largest number that we'd ever seen, was 290 for the full year. So we're easily going to surpass that if we keep at the rate that we're going.
Wow. So last year was a slight dip, it sounds like, and then not a major one, but a slight dip, and then we're
So last year
back on the rocket
overall,
ship.
there was a slowdown in the number of ransomware attacks. So it wasn't just healthcare, it was pretty much across the board that we saw a slowdown in ransomware attacks. And a big part of that was the disruption because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine that created a lot of rift in ransomware groups, because there were some ransomware groups operating out of Ukraine. There were some operating out of Russia. Now they weren't friends anymore. And in general, the invasion caused some disruption in the in the early part of 2022 in the ransomware ecosystem, but by the end of the year, it was back up to full speed.
Gotcha. And any of the ones this year, were there any high profile ones that maybe highlighted new trends or new concerns?
It's funny with with healthcare, it's always been kind of the same. I mean, we keep seeing the same things over and over again, where some of these big hospital systems that we think are going to be okay are are the things that we see these attacks at. We saw, for example, Prestige Care. We saw the Philippine Health Corporation, the Visiting Physicians Network, and that's just all in the last month that we've seen, some relatively large healthcare providers get hit by ransomware. And this is a worldwide problem. This isn't just in the U.S. Although the bulk of the attacks are in the U.S., we're still seeing that this is a challenge worldwide.
Gotcha. And part of the title of the event today is about the triple threat. Can you just give people an overview of what the triple threat is and talk about what's happening with that?
Sure. So most organizations don't want to pay a ransom if they don't have to. And kind of traditional model of ransomware actors encrypting files and then demanding payment for extortion is less effective. Scott, you and I have been doing this for a while, and we've been telling people, please, 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 have good backups. And organizations are finally listening to that. So if it was just recovering from an encryption event, the ransomware actors would never get paid. But now they've kind of moved into other types of extortion. So, the big one, of course, is data theft and threatening to release sensitive data. And that's really important in healthcare because, since, there's so much sensitive patient data there. But we see other things threatening to DDoS hospitals. We've seen cases where ransomware groups have threatened to SWAT like the CEO of a company. And for those who don't know, swatting is where you literally call in a SWAT team. You put a call to the local 911 and say, hey, there's a meth lab or there's a hostage situation at this house, and you send
Right.
them that way. And because the ransomware actors have so much access to data in the network, they are able actually to pull things like that off. So, we're seeing this kind of increasingly invasive and violent threats if ransom isn't paid.
Jeez. Hey, and when we were talking, before this call, you mentioned that it doesn't matter where the data comes from. Can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. So a lot of ransomware groups, because is less effective, have moved to a data theft model. It allows them to move faster, hit more targets, and they don't have to deal with things like, oh, the encryption key, the decryption key didn't work, etc. So with data theft and holding your data hostage being sort of the primary op that a lot of these ransomware groups are moving to, it doesn't matter where the data comes from. So if they get it from your network or your cloud, that's fine. But if they get it from your vendor's network or your vendor's cloud or your vendor's network, cloud, it doesn't matter. We just saw a couple weeks ago that Blackbaud settled a case from 2019, I think, for $49 million.
Right.
And most people have never heard of Blackbaud, but they do fundraising for a lot of schools and for a lot of healthcare providers. And so they were, when they were hit by ransomware, the data that was released was not Blackbaud data. It was all of the organizations that they do fundraising for. And so even if you had done everything correctly, your donor list was now exposed to the internet because Blackbaud got hit with ransomware. And that's really where this concern comes from, is organizations have to be responsible for their data no matter where it is, or at least understand where, what security precautions are in place for the data that's being stored with other providers.
Right. Yeah, that Blackbot example is pretty scary. And you mentioned that a lot of organizations are getting the message on backup. What are some of the top things that healthcare organizations should be doing to protect themselves from ransomware?
So, I mean, a lot of it goes back to basics, right? You need the multi-factor authentication. Network segmentation is really important. And healthcare generally does a lot of that when you're talking about separating, like, administrative network from the actual patient care network. but there's more network segmentation that can be done as well to better protect that. And then, whenever possible, encrypting data at rest doesn't always help, because oftentimes the ransomware actors get in and they have your administrative password, and so they can decrypt everything. But the more that you can encrypt data so that even if they steal it, they can't do anything with it, then the more you can disrupt their operations. And then just looking for signs of the ransomware actor in your network, looking for examples of the tools they use or the PowerShell scripts they use, etc. Those are some of the things that they can do. And I know that's hard. Like, it's easy for me to sit here and say that, and I know it's a lot harder to implement in real life, but it's unfortunately what needs to be done in order to stop these ransomware attacks.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of good tips, and we're going to hear about some solutions like that today throughout the event. So really appreciate you coming on, Alan, just to to set the stage for us. Always good to talk to you. Always appreciate hearing what you have to say about what's happening out there with ransomware.
Oh, I'm always happy to help. And, this is such an important topic. I'm glad you're doing a whole event on this, because it is really important and something that we need to get a handle on.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Alan.
Okay, thank you so much for that presentation and for that, gosh, scary kind of stuff. I have to say, I'm putting up a poll question here first while we get ready for the first presentation. What's your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? Let us know in the poll here. While we get ready for the first official session of the day, and I just wanted to mention here that attacks on healthcare are especially heinous. This can be really life or death. It's not just money, but the ramifications are so significant here. So hopefully you're all thinking about putting in new protections or or improving what you already have. And thanks for letting us know with this poll right here. I'm going to leave this up for one more second. Looks like a lot of you aren't sure when you're going to be doing this. Hopefully today's information will help you get some clarity on that. So thanks again for responding to that poll. And with that, we're going to get to our first session of the day. And up today first is Rubrik. Presenting for Rubrik is Ruben Lewis, inside sales engineer. Ruben is ready to go, warmed up. And Ruben, thank you for being here today. I'm just going to turn this over to you now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for introducing me. As he said, my name is Ruben Lewis, sales engineer at Rubrik. And let me go ahead and kick off that first slide. So what you're seeing here is backup is not equal to cyber recovery. I'll say that again. Backup is not equal to cyber recovery. And I'm going to dig deeper into that as we progress through the presentation. So what is Rubrik? I mean, Rubrik essentially is a backup and cybersecurity platform, and we are designed to partner with healthcare providers, but not only healthcare providers, of course, but we'll partner with healthcare providers in ensuring that patient data is secure, and we ultimately want to enhance their cybersecurity posture. So again, we'll come back to that backup does not equal cyber recovery statement in just a sec, but let's transition to what we're seeing today in the healthcare industry. So this is of no surprise to anyone. You can look at the infographic here: consumerism, telehealth, remote work, healthcare analytics, public cloud. These are those disruptive trends that we're seeing in modern day healthcare. With consumerism, our patients want to have closer and more regular contacts with their healthcare providers, and therefore that gives access to telehealth, and therefore that gives access to more endpoint devices being scattered across your IT infrastructure, your IT stack, and even patient data being more robust and being scattered everywhere. You think about that, and now we have more patient data. Now we're analyzing more patient data, which is awesome. We can implement AI and machine learning to give us more insights and to drive actionable decisions. And then most companies, as we've talked to, also have an initiative to move to the public cloud. So that means that there's more and more data. And when there's more and more data, that means cyber criminals can look at that data and have a bigger area to attack and deal with. On top of that, some of the common challenges that we're seeing in healthcare is, of course, there's more data, but more data means more operational complexity. And kind of as our ransomware guru alluded to earlier, we need to have a solid backup infrastructure. Yet there's still a lot of legacy solutions out there that weren't designed to handle this new changing environment with the triple threat attack vector that we're seeing. And therefore, right, with the operational complexity, with data being everywhere, we also usually don't have the support staff to do that, right? Lean IT teams. So we need systems that are easy to use and that people don't need a lot of training to function properly. Another big piece is, of course, compliance. We have patient data with extremely personal information that we need to uphold certain compliance like HIPAA standards, right? So that being said, these are common challenges, and this is probably not brand new to anyone. We've heard this before, we've seen this before, but how is Rubrik addressing these things? Well, for starters, we have to understand how organizations are being attacked in the first place. So we know that no matter how deep you build your security, perimeter, network, application, endpoint, somehow we're turning on the news and we're seeing something about an attack, a ransomware attack. A bad actor got in. How did they get in? We don't know. But what we do need to know is we have to assume breach. If they're getting into MGM Casino's environment, then they can get into your environment, right? So let's assume breach. And what they're going to do is they're going to go after your data. Now, not only do they want to go after your data, but they're also going after your backup copies. Because what these bad actors realize, if they can get your production data and encrypt that, cool. But if they can get your backup copies as well and get that and make it to where you can't have a clean point of recovery to your production side, that's going to be a really bad day for everyone. So not only has the attack landscape changed of just your production data, but we also see these bad actors coming for our backup data. So that's why having an important backup solution or a secure backup solution is so relevant to us today. Yet this is what we're seeing. So typically in a data center, you'll have your production servers, right, running your applications. And then this is a very simple diagram of what we see. You have a proxy, backup server, probably some disk-based backup target, and then that data living on the SAN or something somewhere. But this type of infrastructure, what we call legacy, this wasn't designed for an adversary behind the firewall. Remember from the last slide, we have to assume breach. So if they do get into our production network, if they somehow manage to get that and have access to that data, now they're in here and now they're traversing and they're doing whatever they want to. So this type of infrastructure, like I said, it wasn't designed for someone breaching the firewall. And now the questions that we have to ask ourselves, as you can see right there, within that, if they're in there and we want to make sure we are secure, well, are we running any open network protocols? Is anything running Windows? And are we MFA and TLTP time-based passwords deployed and enforced globally? Right? Windows, we know Windows has probably the most vulnerabilities. And with MFA and TLTP, maybe we have it running on some of our systems, but not all of our systems. With open network protocols, SMB, NFS, if you have important data just lying on the file share and that bad actors behind the firewall, well, they'll probably have access to that data as well. So is your data an easy target? Are you able to look at this list and say, yes, we're good to go? Not only that, but it's not just our data centers that we're concerned about. As we saw earlier, there's an initiative to push to the cloud. That's across all industries, not just healthcare. And now data's in the cloud. What that means is we have a larger surface area to deal with. We don't just have data protected behind all our moats and firewalls. Now we have it sitting in someone else's infrastructure, like a public cloud provider. And that just means the attack surface area has grown immensely. And that can be very, very challenging. We've basically increased, like I said, the ability to be attacked. And the question still remains, is your data an easy target? Or do you still have those similar things like the open network protocols that we need to address? So backup does not equal cyber recovery. Kind of as I said and alluded to in the first slide. So what do I mean by that? Well, we know that in a typical production outage, maybe we just need to be able to do a quick restore, or say a user deleted an email, so we need to restore an email. But those days, although they are still kind of hear that's not the sole focus of what bad actors want. Bad actors are trying to get into your systems. They're trying to traverse through that file system, encrypt as much data as they can, as well as exfiltrate and take all the healthcare or patient data or your own company data, and so they can threaten to leak that and make you pay a ransom for it. Now, with that new kind of threat landscape in mind, the questions that we have to ask are no longer, can I restore a VM? Of course, you can restore a VM, but the new questions are, what exactly do I recover? Systems are encrypted. How do I have insights into what I need to recover to make sure we maintain uptime of the hospital or the business or whatever it is they need to maintain uptime for? Not only that, we're dealing with healthcare. So like I said, there is personal, private information involved for our patients. And that being said, was sensitive data in scope. We have to assume that if a bad actor got into our system, they breached it, and they encrypted something, then we don't know for sure if they exfiltrated data, but we can for sure assume that they did. Because if they got in, then we can't make any, what's the word I'm looking for? We just have to assume, right? We have to trust that that's probably what they did. And lastly, that last question, how do I ensure I don't restore the malware? They encrypted your data. They probably exfiltrated your data. But now you run the risk of, yes, maybe I can do a quick recovery, but maybe I might restore a recovered system that has the initial payload on there, the executable file that's going to detonate and reinfect your environment. So you're just going to keep reinfecting yourself. So when I say backup's not equal to cyber recovery, these are the things that we have to begin to address. And it's not only important to people on the IT staff or your end users, like your patients, but the board, the C-suite, they care, because this affects the business. This affects the operations of the business and ultimately the life of the business at times. And so they're asking these questions: are we good? Can you prove it? And how long will it take? Are we good? Do we have some sort of infrastructure or software in place that allows us to perform those recoveries and address those questions that we just saw right above this? And can you prove it? How can you show to me or the auditors or whatever it is that we actually have those systems in place to do that? And of course, your RTO, recovery time objective, how long will it take? Well, that means we need a way to test that. We need a way to test quick recoveries, analyzing for any sensitive data or whether that was in scope, and seeing if we can find those detonation package. Rubrik for healthcare. So what is Rubrik doing? We'll dive deeper into that in a couple slides, but in a nutshell, high level, we're going to be able to allow our healthcare providers, our IT staff working for them, we're going to give them that ability to recover rapidly from an attack. We do all that by centralizing. When I say centralizing, we actually do centralize with our single management plane sitting in Google Cloud Provider, but where you can protect your on-premise workloads, virtualized, physical, NAS. You can protect your SaaS workloads, M365, for our remote workers all over the place. And we can also protect various cloud infrastructure, all from the same management window. On top of that, so we'll give you the ability to recover, of course. We'll give you the ability to manage and centralize that data protection. Lastly, we are in the business of strengthening that cyber posture, because we know you can back up and restore on the Rubrik platform. But do you have key insights into data to answer what the C-suite and board are asking? How do we prove that we can actually recover from a ransomware attack? Thus, we give data observability tools for our customers. At the bare minimum, these are the requirements that we're trying to accomplish. We want to reduce cyber risk and protect patient data. And of course, we got data, as I said earlier, sitting all over the place. It's sitting in databases, file shares, SANs, your Epic database, your Epic application, and we're using all these other systems, and we got M365 typically. So can we reduce this cyber risk and can we protect that patient data? Absolutely. And so what we call our cream of the crop solution, Rubrik Security Cloud, I'm going to go ahead and build out all of this right here for you. So Rubrik Security Cloud, as I said, this is our management and control plane, but we don't just give you that. We also give you an immutable, air-gapped gold copy with our backup platform that's encrypted end-to-end, so at rest between the nodes in our platform, and also in flight. So at the bare minimum, we're doing that. We also globally enforce MFA, so you couldn't even log into the Rubrik Security Cloud without it. So that's just ground zero. You'll get that straight out the box, right? But we also have to be able to make sure that people's data is protected. So hence is the data protection piece on that left side. So as I said, we're protecting NAS, we're protecting enterprise data, whether it be VMs, physical hosts, we're protecting cloud data sitting in Azure, AWS, GCP. We also are protecting M365. Now we'll protect those, and because we scan everything, we have insights into that data. Hence, we can do what we call data threat analytics. So we can scan against all those backups, right? We have access to that data, and it won't be running on your production network. It'll be using our own backup and compute resources, and we can detect anomalies, massive file changes, deletes, suspicious data, and we'll go a layer deeper where we can tell us whether our system is encrypted or not. Another thing that we can do is we can do what we call threat hunting and threat monitoring. So we're continuously scanning for threats, what we call indicators of compromise. We're looking for initial breaches and malware against our backups, not just encryption jobs, but also those malware executables. And we're doing that on a continuous basis, or we can do it on a manual basis. Moving on to data security posture, that third column there. So because we are dealing with healthcare, and like I said, there's a bunch of sensitive data in scope, well, we have access to the backup data, which we are scanning. So therefore, we can see where that sensitive data lives and if it's in a place where it shouldn't be. So if a bad actor gets in and we, like I said, we assume breach, then that means if we look at that system and check, it will give us a nice, pretty output of all the types of sensitive data hits that was living on that system and maybe should not have been living on that system, which we can use that to drive insightable actions and make sure we clean up on the front end. And we even give the ability to have user access. So using your Active Directory ACLs, we can scan and see what users have access to sensitive data and who provides or who might be the biggest threat risk in your environment in regards to holding sensitive data. To tie all that together to specifically the benefits you can see here on the screen, we are going to guarantee that ability to recover that data. We're going to make sure that you have that centralized plane, literally, one management plane to protect those on-prem, in-cloud, and SaaS workloads. Your C-suite cares about if you can prove that you can recover from a cyber attack. Well, we do provide ways to test your cyber resiliency within our platform. As I said earlier, we need a way to proactively and reactively proactively respond to ransomware attacks by seeing something like if sensitive data is in scope, and that allows us to make practical data visibility and drive ultimately better decisions. And then reactively, we can use something like our sensitive data monitoring tool or user analyst tool, and we can clean up the production network and make sure maybe there's sensitive data living in the system where it should not be living. And lastly, you see consolidation and repurposing of an existing budget. We actually have quite a few customers who've been able to lower their cyber insurance premium with us because once they realize the backup solution that is sitting in the environment, i.e. Rubrik, they realize that we give them the security benefits they need to lower that cost. So customers are not as big, they're not as big of a risk to our cyber insurance providers. Now, if you don't believe me, look at this beautiful customer slide right here. But we have 9+ years of securing healthcare data across over 300 customers. And here's some of the big ones that I like to call out. So maybe one of those sticks out to you, one of those looks familiar, but all of these are trusted Rubrik customers, and they're very happy customers too. On that topic, one customer in general that really stands out to us is St. Luke's. So St. Luke's is actually protecting 2.5 petabytes of data. That is a ton of data, and therefore they're a big hospital, right? And that means millions of patient records that we are protecting and managing on our platform, and they're getting the ability to make those decisions by detecting whether they might be under attack in a ransomware event, and we can detect those encryptions, and they can see for those sensitive data type of threats, and they can lower that all on the front end before it actually gets to a ransomware attack. But St. Luke's is a very, very strong client of ours. And to bring us home, we have what we call the Rubrik ransomware warranty recovery. This is actually a $10 million warranty. Of course, there are some terms and conditions that you'd have to read, but in the event that you are under a ransomware attack, we have your back up to $10 million. We're so confident in the way we built our infrastructure. We literally built it zero trust, modeling the NIST format. We're so confident in that encryption or MFA, the way we have those data observability tools, that we're willing to put $10 million on the line. Additionally, you can see the ransomware response team. So we actually have a dedicated support engineering team. No additional cost to our customers. Everyone gets this. We'll stick with you 24/7 if you are ever in the event of a ransomware attack. In fact, they won't leave you until you bug them, until you tell them to leave. And so they'll be bugging you, making sure that you feel confident and that you can use those Rubrik tools as well in the event of a ransomware attack. Lastly, Rubrik Zero Labs. This is our research lab, so we've hired some really intelligent people who are renowned in the security industry to help us drive and do research for us about what kind of trends we're seeing. And via that, we're taking some of that research data and we're actually implementing that into our solution. For example, with threat monitoring, we're proactively scanning for those malwares against your backups, and you don't have to do a thing. We're feeding that from research from Rubrik Zero Labs or from the CIA or other third-party cybersecurity vendors, potentially like Mandiant. In a nutshell, this is Rubrik. This is what Rubrik does. This is what we provide, and this is how we are helping organizations feel protected against ransomware. Thank you.
All right. Hey, Ruben, thanks so much for that awesome presentation. It's nice to have a trusted partner and see that Rubrik is putting their money where their mouth is, as they say, literally a $10 million guarantee. Yeah, it's like, where do I sign up for that? I'll tell you what, while we get ready for questions, we're going to put up our next poll question. We would like to know what additional information you want to see from Rubrik. After that presentation, I imagine there's a lot of interest. So you ready for some Q&A, Ruben?
Absolutely. Feed me, I'm hungry.
Well, I got some tasty questions for you. So let's get into those. First up, you mentioned early in your presentation about healthcare compliance and how important that is. Well, so how does Rubrik help with that very important aspect of healthcare related compliance?
Yeah, great question. So something we do, we'll scan the backup data. So as we ingest everything into the Rubrik platform, we'll scan it, index it, and therefore that gives us insights into what's living in that data. We can't specifically see the data, but we can use the metadata to paint us a picture. And what we can do is we can see using the metadata whether something like HIPAA data is living on that system or not.
Great. Really important stuff. Okay, next question. How does Rubrik protect my files like PACS imaging or lab tests?
That's a great question. And in fact, a lot of our customers are coming to this with this very not unique, but prevalent use case. And something that we like to tell them is, hey, we have a solution. We have a solution where we deploy a virtual machine that's going to be able to write petabyte scale data to any cloud target of your choice or on-premise NFS target. And we call this NAS Cloud Direct.
Okay, excellent. So speaking of cloud, here's a good segue. Someone wants to know, we have an initiative to go to the cloud. So how does Rubrik help in that scenario?
Sure. So Rubrik came to market in 2014 only protecting on-premise, but we realized the story has changed. Customers wanted to go to the cloud. So we also gave them the ability to what we call archiving or writing data to the cloud. So what we'll do is we'll initially land that data on the Rubrik appliance, and we'll archive that off and send it to a cloud target of your choosing, whether it be Wasabi, whether it be AWS, Azure, GCP, you name it, we'll help you get you there.
Very, very good to know. Okay, got time, I think, for a couple of more questions here. Peter wants to know, how does Rubrik work with or supplement MDR processes that we have in place? So I assume he's referring to medical device reporting when he says MDR.
Hey, Peter, that's a good question. I'm actually not quite sure. I think I might have to sit on that one for a little bit, but I'll make sure I get an answer to you after this.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Follow-up will be coming your way, Peter. So, all right, time for one more question. I think we can squeeze this in here today, Ruben. How does Rubrik handle EHR systems like Epic, Meditech, Corner, and others?
Sure. So we have native integration, whether it be at the VM level or the file set level. And kind of similar to our other applications, we're going to ingest that onto the appliance, right? And upon doing so, we'll automatically perform those index jobs, and we will give you that data analytics, such as ransomware detection on those very supported workloads.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, Ruben from Rubrik. Boy, that's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it, to say? This has been so much fun to have you on today, and we're about out of time, but I did want to ask you one final thing. If somebody wants to take the next step with Rubrik, what do you recommend they do?
Sure. I think the best way is to go onto the website, and there should be a little contact sales button. I would fill out your information, and that would route you to your assigned sales representative based on the region that you're in.
All right. Simple. That's exactly what we're looking for too. Ruben, thank you so much for your time and for the presentation, for your insights in the Q&A today. It was an absolute pleasure to have you and Rubrik on.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
Bye now. Okay. So with that, we are ready for our first $300 Amazon gift card prize drawing of the event. And we have a winner picked out. Now, as just mentioned at the outset, you do have to be present during the whole event to be eligible to win. And the winner of the first $300 gift card for today is Pete Hoskinson from Arizona. Congratulations to you, Pete. We will be in touch about claiming your prize. Excellent. So we are ready for our next presentation. And on deck right now from 1111 Systems is Tori Williams, an enterprise solution architect. Tori is here. He is rested and ready to go. Tori, thanks for being here. I'm going to turn this over to you now.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction. I appreciate it. So hello, folks. It's nice to talk to you today. Again, my name is Tori Williams. I'm a solution architect for 1111 Systems. And today the topic that we want to talk about is could you recover from a cyber attack? And this is a really important conversation that we have to have today for a lot of reasons. It's basically driving almost every conversation that we're having with our customers today. Ransomware, it's an active, prevalent threat. And I don't think everyone always realizes, how prevalent it is and how out there it is. But there's some interesting things that we're seeing in the industry today. Folks can purchase ransomware as a service. So you could actually go onto the dark web and purchase ransomware as a service. There are trade groups actually for these threat actors where they do things like figure out how much they can negotiate ransoms down and things like that. Getting breached it's almost not an if anywhere. It's almost like a when. I saw a statistic recently that once an entity is targeted by an organized group, so once a government threat actor or an entity, an organized group decides to target you, the success rate is over 70%. So over 70% of those organizations that are targeted have some form of ransomed data. Healthcare, biggest targeted industry right now. It's the most lucrative for these folks. The financial sector and government sectors are kind of right behind it, but by far healthcare is the most targeted group. So it's no longer enough for these criminals to take your data and resell it. it's much more simple and lucrative for them to encrypt the data and then actually charge a ransom. Some patterns that we're seeing in these attacks, these cyber criminals, they're patient. They can actually be in your environment for months performing reconnaissance, and we've seen that in some of these wider scale attacks. So the days where they get access to your systems and they release the attack right away, or they release that payload and encrypt the data right away, are few and far between right now. What we're seeing more likely is that these attackers are in for several weeks or several months, trying to find the most effective way to ransom the data and defeat your defenses, right? So backups, replicas, disaster recovery, anything that you have to defeat that. It's not always obvious. Sometimes they do, much more surreptitious things like modifying retention policies on backups. So the backups are no longer there, right? Or deleting the backups, kind of starting with the oldest ones and moving forward. So if you don't have the right monitoring in place, and a lot of folks don't, you may not even know what's happening until it's too late. So the question is, knowing that, as a healthcare organization, you are likely going to be targeted. The question is, are you ready for it to happen? Could you recover from something like that? And we're here to help you answer that question today. Look, case studies, they help us to do better, right? We learn from every single one of these things that happen. And one of the things that recently I've been working on or looking at is this Illinois hospital. So it was an Illinois hospital systems. They did recover. They did recover from backups, but it took them 14 weeks. And during that 14 weeks of recovering from backups, they were unable to bill. So we don't even think about things in terms of patient care. Yes, that's one thing, but this company, they weren't even able to bill. They weren't able to basically bring money in. And so unable to submit these insurance claims, they basically went bankrupt. They had no cash flow and they went out of business. As kind of an aside here, there's been a lot of studies that have been done that show that ransomware attack downtime actually leads to higher mortality rates. So think about that for a minute. Being able to recover from these events as quickly as possible is literally a matter of life and death. And this has been proven by multiple studies. So now that we've talked about, kind of set the table there and talked about, these ransomware attacks and things like that, let's talk about what a realistic recovery looks like. And there's a lot of systems and a lot of vendors out there that'll say, hey, we can protect all this data and we're magically going to bring it back up and we're magically going to erase the ransomware and things like that. But the reality of the recovery today of ransomware is that you are likely going to be recovering infected systems. So let's talk about three key pieces to this: recovery point objective and recovery time objective. How much data can you lose, and how quickly do you need to be back online? Typically, RPO, recovery point objective, is driven by the frequency of backups or the frequency of replicas, and we'll talk more in depth on the difference between those two things in a minute. Recovery time objective: how quickly do you need to get these systems back online? And there's going to be a variety of factors that affect that, but typically recovery time objective is driven by that third piece, which is the platform. So where will you recover your systems to? Where will you recover your data to? And we'll go into a little bit more detail in a minute about why the recovery platform is critical. So what will you recover from? And it's kind of funny, I struggled with whether to put tapes in here or not. So I would say if tapes are your recovery strategy right now, please call us as soon as the webinar is over so we can chat about a better strategy. Most tape recoveries take weeks, and that's assuming you have good tape hardware, good tapes, and also a place to restore it. But tapes today, from a ransomware standpoint, are not really a realistic recovery options. Backups are a better strategy for sure, especially immutable backups. Immutable is the big buzzword today, backups that can't be modified. But they also have challenges. So rehydration of backups, especially if they're off-premise backups, tends to take a while, right? You have to bring that data somewhere, down somewhere, and you have to rehydrate it. Backups can be deleted, corrupted, and encrypted. So backups are just files, right, at the end of the day. So threat actors can and will go into the environment, delete them, encrypt them, and remember, they're doing a reconnaissance as well. So they know where they are, they know where to find them before they kind of release those payloads. And you still need a place to restore them to, right? So if your current environment is compromised, there's a big, long process you're going to have to go through to clean up that environment before you can even safely restore those backups. So my personal favorite and what we've seen from hundreds of customers today is using essentially powered off replicas to recover the environment, perform digital forensics, and get up and running as quickly as possible. Replicas are some of their advantages. They're typically offline, so they're not attackable, right? So a replica itself typically can't be attacked. They're also ready to be powered on at a moment's notice. So a replica doesn't have to be rehydrated by a backup system. It is typically a VM that is sitting there, and it is very quickly ready to be powered on. Those replicas typically land on a cloud platform, and in 1111 Systems case, they do land on a VMware cloud platform that already includes storage, compute, and networking. So one of the most difficult parts of recovering into a recovery environment is getting users and customers into it, right? And so if you've got that networking set up ahead of time, you've got that compute and storage set up ahead of time, you can very, very quickly bring these replicas online. Now, replicas are still, potential, they're subject to being infected, right? So we talk about infection versus encryption. So infection is the installation of that executable file into the operating system, where encryption is the actual encryption of the data, rendering that system unusable, right? So a lot of the times you'll have a system that's been infected for months and it just now got encrypted. Your data's fine 10 minutes ago. It's just on an infected system, but now it's unusable because it's just been encrypted. So the reality of things are, you may be recovering an infected replica, but the ability to recover it into an environment that is a clean room where you can perform digital forensics is really the key there, right? Bring them up quickly, identify and mitigate the ransomware, get the business up and running again. So we'll talk about what a realistic recovery actually looks like. But one of the case studies I always like to talk about is the infamous Colonial Pipeline. So Colonial Pipeline, they actually did things right. They had backups both on site and off site. The problem was that they basically paid the ransom and then realized that the encryption or the decryption algorithm was going to take a very, very long time, right? It was very, very slow because, let's face it, these criminals don't care about how long it takes you to get back up once you've paid the ransom, right? They're just going to make sure you can decrypt that data. It was very slow. So they began recovering from their off-site backups, which had not been attacked and had not been encrypted. Well, as most of you are probably familiar, you've probably heard about this attack. It took them a week and a half, possibly 2 weeks, to get back online from those backups. So a very, very long time. During that time, gas prices went through the roof. People were getting in the fights at the gas pumps on the East Coast. It was just a really, really bad situation. So it's so illustrative of how important recovery time is. How quickly can you get back up online? How quickly can you get those systems running is really going to depend on how much chaos is created, when we do these recoveries or when we get subject to these attacks. So now let's talk about probably the most critical piece of the recovery is where that recovery is actually going to happen. The on-prem environment, so the environment that was infected, the environment that was ransom, it's still compromised, right? It's probably still compromised. So it doesn't make for the best recovery environment, right? The threat actors may still be in there monitoring it, and as a matter of fact, I wouldn't call this a case study, but a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a potential customer who had recovered from a ransomware attack with backups. And while they were performing the backup recovery into the original environment, they actually got an email from the threat actor saying, knock it off, or we're going to take your data and we're just going to throw away the key. Right? So think about that. They're doing this recovery from backups into the live environment, and they literally got an email from the attacker at that time. That's how into that environment they were. So the other thing is, chances are, like I said earlier, you're not going to be able to roll back to a pre-infection state. If you were infected 3 months ago, there's no business that I know of that can roll back 3 months. It's just not a realistic. It's just not a realistic idea. Finally, and this is something we've been seeing, I would say, in the last 6 months a little bit more often, is that a lot of the cyber insurance companies either won't pay or they won't pay as much if you're recovering into the original infected environment. So that's a really important point, because you may have done everything right. You have those backups, you have the maybe a secondary site, you've got cyber insurance, right? But then you actually run into a condition where you may not be able to get paid as much or at all if the recovery is done back into the original environment. So what should that recovery platform look like? So basically, first of all, we want to have the ability to have replicas being pushed into that environment with no attack vector. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've got a secondary site today. Maybe you've got a domain controller running there. Maybe you've got a SQL log shipping target sitting there. Any kind of attack, any kind of path, IPsec tunnels, VPN tunnels, things like that, into that environment are giving threat actors a path into that environment. So this is why I talked earlier about the importance of offline replicas. So the ability to push replicas onto storage in that environment, but not have any kind of an attack path into that environment is super important. We want the ability to do our forensics, our identification and mitigation, our restores into an isolated bubble environment. Right, so we call this a clean room. We don't want to expand our risk any further than we already have, right? And so we want to have the ability to have this clean room, this bubble environment where we can bring up VMs, have our forensics team identify the malware, mitigate the malware, kind of create a run book there, and then bring up and clean up the rest of the environment. While you're doing that, we want to be able to cut off outside access, and I mean outbound and inbound access. Right? So we need some kind of a way in that environment to be able to manage it, to be able to do this identification and mitigation with no outside access to the internet. That's important because a lot of this ransomware actually contacts a command and control server that's on the internet. So when we've been seeing this actual identification and mitigation of malware, typically outside access is turned off, so that those systems can't contact a command and control server and re-encrypt. And the ability to grant access to your cyber recovery teams. So the secondary platform, maybe your cyber insurance company has a blue team or a green team that they're bringing in, or maybe you have a team. Maybe you've outsourced this, but you have to be able to give them the ability to access that environment so that they can perform their forensics, verify a clean state, and then move on to a full run condition. So how can 1111 systems and Veeam help with this? So simply put, we are a global VMware cloud service provider. We have locations all across the globe, in EMEA, in APAC, in the States. And again, these are VMware environments, very typical to what you're probably running on-prem today, that can be used as a clean room, that can be used as a secondary recovery location. Basically, Veeam is built into our platform and our user interface. So, these technologies that allow you to do these offline replicas, they're actually built into the platform. And so again, those replicas can be brought up very, very quickly, and it gives us that isolated bubble environment that's critical for recovery. So what's different, right? So what makes 11.11 different, right? So it's that combination of services, right? We've got that cloud, we've got the connectivity, we've got the security. Do you not have a cyber recovery plan? Maybe you don't have one today, right? Maybe you haven't even thought about this. You'd be surprised how many folks I talk to that are in that boat. We can bring in experts to put a cyber recovery plan together for you. Maybe you have a plan. Maybe you've actually done that exercise, but you've never tested it, or you're struggling with testing. We can bring in experts to go through what we call tabletop exercises, right? So planning for these things, what does it look like? The more you plan and the more you basically run through these things, these tabletop exercises, the better prepared you're going to be if something actually happens. Maybe today you have a secondary recovery site, or we heard from someone earlier that has these initiatives to move to the cloud. 11.11 Systems is a cloud provider. We are a VMware cloud service provider. We are not just a disaster recovery platform. You can run your cloud workloads with us and then protect them into a different data center, right? Maybe you're looking to convert some of your CapEx business today to OpEx, right? Getting rid of that secondary data center. We can help with that. So, transparently, there are a lot of cloud providers out there, and a lot of cybersecurity firms. 11.11 combines all those things. So we have all those things. We have the VMware platform to put your data on. We can do those offline replicas, and then we can bring in professional services to actually help you plan and test for these recoveries. And I can't state enough how important that is, right? These rehearsals. It's one thing to have a plan, right? But what's the saying? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the nose, right? So we want to make sure that when you're subject, if you're subject, and when you're subject to one of these attacks, that you actually have the preparation, the rehearsing, and having gone through this before. Maybe it's a tabletop exercise, right? So that you know exactly what it's going to look like, and you're like, okay, here we go, let's go, right? So I do want to mention this, and I really hope as many people as possible, take us up on this, but we have a promotion right now where you can get a cyber recovery risk assessment. So this is essentially a risk assessment as far as cyber attacks go, and you come out of that with a readiness score, and you can also get a free risk assessment, a free consultation with our 11.11 experts. So these same folks that are doing this every day, that are doing these tabletop exercises, that are putting these disaster recovery plans together, they are available, and you can get a free consultation with them. So there's really no risk to it at all, other than scanning a QR code, right? And then I encourage you to take advantage of that and get in front of our experts, get our experts in front of you, and basically take advantage of that promotion. And so that wraps up my presentation. Thank you very much for having me, and I think we'll probably have a Q&A session at this point.
We sure will. Thanks so much, Tori, for that presentation. Just great information. I especially like the emphasis on tabletop exercises. That's one of those things that everybody knows about, but then when you kind of dig in, you find out that gosh, it seems like a large majority of companies never really do it. They just kind of like the idea of it and, never get around to it, which is a bad place to be in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put up a poll question while we get ready for some Q&A. Let us know what additional information you would like about the 1111 systems solution. Keep voting while we do some of your questions that have come in. So, first question for you today, Tori. Someone wants to know about what percentage of healthcare organizations you work with are switching from a strategy of recovering from backups to recovering from replicas.
That's a good question, and it actually has an easy answer. Basically, all of them. By the time a customer is contacting us, they've probably realized that backups aren't the end all be all to recovering from a cyber event. It's usually some combination of forensic recovery of standby replicas and then forensic recovery of those backups. And that's just the reality today. I'm hoping someday we have some automatic process that just eliminates ransomware, but the reality of today is that's not what a recovery looks like. It's kind of a combination of replicas and backups. So the short answer is all of them are looking at that clean room and replica recovery strategy.
Okay, great. Now, you gave that terrifying example of the Illinois hospital that closed, at least in part due to a ransomware attack and the 14 weeks of systems down and all of that. What are you seeing at 1111 Systems about how attacks specifically against hospitals have changed or evolved over the years?
This is very interesting. So I've been in the solution architecture space for I believe 8 years now. So I have a pretty good sampling, and I would say over that time, I've seen 3 really big evolutions of how these crimes worked. At first, it was just to get in and steal data, right, and then resell it. Then it kind of more evolved into this, I should say that was the second evolution of it. The third evolution of it more recently has been this ransomware, right? This holding data hostage. And what's happening is these foreign actors and terrorist organizations and foreign governments, they're using cybercrime as a way to level the playing field against powerful adversaries like the United States, right? So again, that exact number, 73% of healthcare orgs responding to a study reported having some data encrypted by ransomware. 73%, that's almost 3/4. So these aren't always the full scale of the data, those aren't the ones that make the news. No one really wants to take the chance that they're going to have a full scale cyber recovery event. So the evolution has gone from just selling data, but the hospital is still running, to ransoming that data and basically taking the hospital systems completely offline until they pay money, which that money then is used to fund things like terrorism, like foreign governments. So every time we can tell them, hey, we're not paying the ransom, we're going to recover ourselves, it's a win. Right, it's a win for that org, and it's a win globally, by taking that money away from terrorist organizations and foreign governments.
Oh, for sure, for sure. My wife actually works in a hospital, and there have been situations when the computers go down, they have to do paper and pencil, and that's just not a way to do patient care, to do health care. This has been such a great, enlightening presentation today. Thank you so much, Tori, for your time today. One last question that we can squeeze in here. For those who want to take the next step with 1111 Systems, what do you recommend they do? And while you're answering, I'm also going to put up this QR code again so they can all see that. So there you go.
Yeah, and I would say, go to our website, give us a call, get in touch, right? There's no risk in starting the conversation. One of the things that I love about talking to customers is, hey, I know at the end of the day they may not buy anything from us, right? but it's educating people. And it, every time we educate people, every time we give people more information about how to defeat these threats, it's a win, right? It's a win for the good guys. So, give us a call, go to our website, talk to us. Let's have a conversation about how you can better protect yourself, how you can get that cyber recovery plan, and really recover well and come out of a cyber attack on top.
Exactly. At worst, you get a free risk assessment, so you
Right.
come out ahead no matter what happens from there. Tori, once again, thank you for your insights in the Q&A and for your presentation. We enjoyed having you on today. Thanks again for informing us on what 1111 Systems can do for healthcare organizations.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm going to leave this QR code up here for one more minute for everyone while I do the next prize giveaway. We have our $300 Amazon gift card drawing ready to go, and the winner of the latest one, is PJ Santoro from California. Congratulations to you, PJ. You will be hearing from us soon. And with that, let's get to our final presentation of today's EcoCast, and this one comes from Rackspace. Presenting for Rackspace today is Michael Levy, Director of Private Cloud Product Management. Michael, it is so great to have you here. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to you. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, Keith. I really appreciate it. I'm Michael Levy, Director of our Private Cloud product. I'm in charge of our programmatic infrastructure division, so all the infrastructure that delivers our private cloud services. And I'm going to talk about our data protection and ransomware remediation offerings and how they're pertinent to the healthcare market. And just want to start talking about this landscape. And I feel like as I'm speaking, this landscape is changing because the threat landscape is escalating. People are trying their best. All the different stakeholders are trying to figure out the best foot forward. And essentially what we do is we synthesize what we hear from our customers, what we hear from our hardware vendors, the analyst community, and we synthesize that, and our engineers put together solutions along with the product team, which I'm part of, to be able to augment our customers' ransomware readiness. I want to start by going over some results from an interesting survey from 2023. So we'll start with some good news. Fewer healthcare organizations are paying ransomware than they did before. In 2023, 42% of respondents paid ransom to recover, which is down from 61% captured in the prior year's report. Now to the bad news, the median ransom paid, however, went up dramatically from 30,000 to 2.5 million, and holistic recovery costs doubled over 2 years, reaching 2.2 million in 2023. Now, when an organization is affected by ransomware, right, they have a choice to make. If as long as the entity that has attacked them is not part of a sanctioned organization, right? They need to choose whether they're going to recover from backups or are going to recover by way of paying ransom. And it's proven that recovering from encrypted backups is actually quicker than paying the ransom. So of the respondents in the survey that recovered using backups, 73% recovered in less than 1 month fully, whereas only 59% that paid ransom recovered in less than 1 month. And the goal of data protection and ransomware remediation is that we will help customers preclude the need to pay ransom, and they can effectively roll back in time to a state before the attack even happened. Now, we work with several industries to help them augment their ransomware readiness. And healthcare is one of the prominent ones because the data that healthcare organizations that they have carry significantly more value on the black market. It's crazy to think, but a single patient record, according to Experian, can sell over $1,000 on the black market, which is 50 times higher than a standard credit card record. I'm sure we've all been told that one of our credit cards has been leaked out into the dark web, and sometimes we see activity, sometimes we don't, and the credit organizations tend to catch it. At least I've been lucky. So data protection and disaster recovery are incredibly important, and it's incredibly important to be able to fashion a go-forward strategy, given that the threat landscape is only intensifying. I think it's important to delineate the difference between data protection and disaster recovery, and they're not exactly mutually exclusive. So just to set the stage, data protection is a technological solution that saves copies of data at different points in time and enables that point in time recovery that I just mentioned. The goal is to just protect the data. And one way to differentiate between the two is where the recovery location is. For data protection, the recovery location is generally the same physical location as the production environment, if not the same exact gear. The retention could be offsite or it could be on-site. And generally, data protection is less expensive. You could think of traditional backup technologies. Disaster recovery, on the other hand, is a holistic solution that is a plan, a process, and technology to ensure automated application failover. And the recovery location is always different from the production location because a comprehensive disaster recovery strategy assumes that the production environment is rendered unavailable, whether it's from human negligence, a natural disaster, or a cyber attack. And generally, it's a lot more expensive because it's not just a box that is retaining secure copies. There's a lot more involved, and I'll elaborate on that. So let's just talk about data protection right now. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the 3-2-1 best practice principle, having 3 different copies of your data on 2 different medium, and one of them being offsite. And there are other variations with a whole bunch of numbers. What we're seeing, speaking to all the stakeholders that we interface with, is that almost everyone is aligned horizontally across industries that when it comes to data protection, it's best practice to have a redundant approach where you have on the storage array crash consistent snapshots. So the snapshots on the storage array are a log of changes that they're often done frequently, and it effectively allows the data to be rolled back in time to a previous state before an incident happened. And there are various levels of security and permissions, whether the user can delete any copies, whether in our case a service provider can or cannot. And that is one part of a dual-pronged approach. The other is having immutable backups, where you have backup files that are secured with write once, read many worm capabilities, so they cannot be altered or tampered with by anyone, including Rackspace, unless the entire array is destroyed. And all of this is protected in our world-class data center. So the 2 solutions are available. The storage snapshots are available across our storage portfolio, which I'll quickly go over. And the immutable data locks, that's our name for the worm backups is available through Rackspace Data Protection. Quickly go over Rackspace Data Protection. We recently partnered with Cohesity as our new data protection vendor. We maintain the Cohesity gear that we fully manage within Rackspace data centers that are hyper adjacent to the hyperscale cloud on-ramp. So generally, our real estate is the building next door or a close drive from the cloud ecosystem facility, which we also have our on-ramp in, and our on-ramp is connected directly to the hyperscale cloud provider on-ramp. So our backup targets, which offer that immutability, are not only air-gapped from other Rackspace services within the data center, which we back up here. We back up bare metal servers, and then SDDC stands for Software Defined Data Center. That's our suite of dedicated and multi-tenant VMware cloud offerings. We also are planning on offering these targets within our data centers for hyperscale cloud workloads. And because we have direct private pipes going between our data center and our private network and the hyperscale cloud providers, every time you are backing up the incremental day's work, you're enjoying that 80 to 90% discount the hyperscale cloud providers afford you if you're riding someone else's network and not theirs. And also, and this is something that we are seeing larger healthcare organizations demanding, is that they're looking for service providers such as us to deploy backup infrastructure in their proprietary data center, backing up their local applications, and then also having a redundant offsite backup location and a Rackspace data center, which we are completely separate from any of the hyperscale infrastructure, AWS, Azure, and Google, which definitely gives peace of mind to many of our customers. Here's a high-level overview of our storage offerings, which offer those crash-consistent snapshots. Essentially, we have multi-tenant and single-tenant block, file, and object storage platforms for customers to enjoy, and they can directly connect those to on-prem through our network partners. They can connect to our various flavors of private cloud within our data centers. Our object storage offering can be directly accessible through the public internet. But what I want to drive home here is that you are getting those secure snapshots for all these offerings. Here you can see a map of data protection. So the storage and backup offerings that all are able to facilitate that point in time recovery. So we have a global footprint here. Our data centers are multi-megawatt, highly secure facilities that are operated with excellence. We adhere to Lean Six Sigma, the Japanese 5S methodologies to ensure uptime. So to talk about disaster recovery now, and you can see in this continuum we have represented here that data protection, that's what DP stands for here, is part of the holistic disaster recovery plan. And what we see as best practice is that healthcare entities need an objective third party to execute a comprehensive business impact analysis to determine the financial and reputational ramifications of downtime for each application. And then coming up with a process that will leverage technology, which is where data protection comes in. Also disaster recovery technologies as well, and I'll get into that, to ensure that when you're triaging the attention to applications to get the most important ones online that have the most severe business impact, that is being executed in an optimal way and actually works. So you formulate a plan from the initial business impact assessment. You then create the technologies that will enable the point-in-time recovery. But then as your business imperatives change, you need to continually test and optimize and redo your disaster recovery plan. And we are offering the people, process, and technology here to be able to allow our customers to continually ensure that their disaster recovery regimen is meeting their business needs. So the technology here, beyond the data protection physical solutions I mentioned, we also have a disaster recovery as a service for VM workloads. This is part of our SDDC, or Software Defined Data Center portfolio. Our multi-tenant and single-tenant VMware private clouds can serve as a disaster recovery target. So I mentioned disaster recovery, unlike data protection, the restore location is always offsite. And we can serve as that offsite recovery target for private cloud services and other Rackspace data centers than the recovery location. I showed you our global footprint. We can also serve as the recovery environment for the hyperscale cloud providers, and we also have those private network connections to all of the availability zones. So any egress fees you'll see as a result of continually having that disaster recovery network in place will be cut down significantly. And we also can serve as a target for our customers' on-prem environments as well, as long as their VMware environments. So the options for connectivity are riding Rack Connect Global, which is our private backbone that I mentioned that is completely independent from the public internet, and for the hyperscale public clouds, unlocks those egress fees, which can really get away from a company and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars a month. Or our customers can opt that the connectivity between the protected sites and the recovery sites are over a VPN over the public internet. So I mentioned that we are offering the people, process, and technology here, and I'll get into how we deliver that. And we're also trying to solve the fundamental problems of traditional disaster recovery on-prem and hyperscaler public cloud infrastructure as a service to disaster recovery solutions. Our aim is to help our customers significantly decrease the resources, capital investments, and time needed to build and maintain an effective disaster recovery solution. I had gone over the various technology options, but when it comes to the people and process, we deliver this through our Elastic Engineering solution, which is an incredibly nimble DevOps staff augmentation offering. Doesn't require a SOW that takes a long time to create with the large systems integrators or consulting firms out there. Essentially, our customers can reserve blocks of hours monthly of a team of engineers that are an extension of their business, and they are incredibly critical in the sense that they're constantly iterating what they're doing, what they're suggesting the customers' teams do, to be able to ensure that the disaster recovery plan is effective, tested. They also can help initially with the business impact analysis as well. So we're offering that holistic solution, combining our SDDC DRAS solution, the Rackspace data protection backup solution, the crash consistent snapshots, combining that with Elastic Engineering to making sure that their ransomware readiness is in place and that everything is patch monitored and up to date. Here you can see our map for the targets of the SDDC disaster recovery locations. SDDC Flex is our multi-tenant flavor of the platform, and then SDDC Business and Enterprise, our two single-tenant flavors. SDDC Business is a single vSphere virtualized server, and SDDC Enterprise is a full VCF environment for our customers. I just want to end with an interesting case study that this is our most resilient configuration that we offer customers on a custom basis. When I speak to healthcare organizations or even financial services organizations that are also incredibly cognizant of the threats out there, most see what I've discussed as a satisfactory approach, having disaster recovery as a service, having the dual-pronged data protection in place with the storage secure snapshots, with the immutable backups. But this is the next level. And we are looking to eventually streamline this cyber faulting, which this is based on a real customer. And I think that we're going to increasingly see configurations like these. And what this is effectively is having a truly air-gapped third copy. So this customer has their production environment with us in our Northern Virginia data center. They are backing it up to Rackspace Data Protection, and then there's automatic firewall policies that periodically turn on the connection to a tertiary copy, and then it's cut off. So there is literally no connectivity going to this cyber vault, this vaulted cluster. And if the customer needs to restore, they can go into a clean room that's separate from production with SDDC Flex, which is our multi-tenant offering. Similarly, they are backing up both their AWS and Azure environments to virtual Cohesity clusters in the hyperscale public cloud that they're respectively in. And they also are replicating it to the Rackspace backup and also vaulting that. So this is ensuring that there's, so to speak, a golden copy, ensuring that this is unaffected, which lowers the propensity of being affected by attack, but also helps customers if they're concerned that whatever authorities are in their jurisdiction, that they wouldn't seize the backup as they're trying to recover for investigation purposes if there's suspicion that they were attacked by a sanctioned entity, which is often even of greater concern than the attack itself, because they don't want to have the backups removed from their control before they can fully recover from a clean point-in-time copy. Any questions?
Hi, Michael. Certainly we do have some questions, and while we get ready for those questions, I'm going to put up our final poll question of the day. Let us know what additional information you'd like about the Rackspace solution. Some great information presented there, and so let us know. And in the meantime, Michael, let's dive in. First question on the list today. What are some of the measures you suggest to help mitigate disruptions should a ransomware attack occur?
To mitigate disruptions, I think ensuring that you have a technology that allows near immediate recovery. One of the reasons why we chose Cohesity is that the technology allows for VMware workloads that just enough restores to the production environment or clean room to be operational within minutes. And it's essentially running from the backup infrastructure until it fully restores. And we know, especially in the healthcare industry, that we have massive amounts of data that need to be restored. So ensuring that the technology facilitates a cloud-like recovery, you need to be able to reconcile the need for isolation for the immutability and air gapping with your RTO objectives. And you need to make sure that the technology facilitates that. And that's how I can see you minimizing disruption.
Gotcha. Yeah, the restore is just as important. I mean, what good are the backups if you can't restore from them quickly, for sure. Okay. So got some more great questions coming in. I think we can get to a few more. Let's see. Adam wants to know, are egress fees with Rackspace typically cheaper versus AWS or Azure? Is that something you can speak to?
So on the vast majority of our offerings, we do not charge egress fees whatsoever. Some of our offerings we do, very few, and they are, many, they're considerably cheaper. Basically, what we're doing with Rack Connect Global is that we are combining AWS Direct Connect, Azure Express Route, Google Cloud Interface, because we already have those connections. And we have, it's multi-tenant infrastructure that's secure between each customer using it. So we are just offering a far more cost-effective way to garner those benefits and establish those direct connections. Anyone who has AWS Direct Connect will get the, 80-something% discount. It's just we are precluding customers from needing to call up their telco or colo in the really expensive ecosystem facility where all the cloud providers are located and paying the few $100s a month for the cross connect. So we're delivering access to that in a much cheaper way than doing it yourself.
Great to hear, and music to the ears of a lot of our attendees today. Okay, Jeffrey wants to know, can I fail back just the changes that were made?
That would be a question for our engineers. It's based, I covered 3 technologies. I know that some of them are more granular than others, and you can recover down to the object. So I believe that is possible, but please download the collateral we have and reach out to us, and I can get you a firm answer for that.
And that's a great reminder also for everyone to look at the handout section before we wrap today and download all of those great free resources from Rackspace and the other presenting vendors today. Okay, I think we can fit in one more question today, and it is this. How do you ensure redundancy in your infrastructure to prevent widespread service disruptions?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our infrastructure in our data centers is Fort Knox. Everything is redundant, and we have multiple levels of abstraction. So there is always an air gap between the production environments and the recovery environments, wherever they are. So, fully redundant pathways and multiple points of demarcation with network security gear to ensure that there's no systemic risk. And then with the technology we use, if it's multi-tenant, customers are comprehensively isolated from each other and don't affect each other.
Okay.
So we've invested significantly in our network in the 2 decades that we've been around.
And that's how you get to be Fort Knox, right? So, yeah. So that's important to know for sure. Wow, such great information, and thank you for your insights in the Q&A, Michael. What I am going to do is leave this up here for another minute, this poll question, so you can let Rackspace know what to do next. Michael Levy, thank you so much for being here with us and for the information you shared today. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Keith. Appreciate it.
And with that, everyone, we are up for our final prize drawing of the day. I'm going to leave the Rackspace poll up here another minute to give you a little bit more time while we do the last Amazon gift card prize drawing today. And that's a $300 one, as the others have been. And the winner of the final of the very last Amazon gift card for this event is Leela Chandrasekhar, also from California, like our previous winner. Congratulations to you, Leela. We will be in touch about claiming your prize. And so I have a question for you now. If you enjoyed today's event, are you thinking that maybe we could do something like this for you? If that is the case, let us know. We'd love to hear from you to help to determine which of our plethora of events each year would be a good fit for you, or a custom event. We can create one just for you too. So if that is the case, please reach out to connect@actualtechmedia.com, and we will be in touch on that ASAP to start building an event just for you. So, now, tomorrow, if you enjoyed what you were hearing today, tomorrow is a related event that might really intrigue you. This is an expert series, and it's about revisiting 3-2-1 and other backup wisdom. 3-2-1 is the model that most or all of you probably know for making backup copies. And we have an expert series with some heavy hitter companies, including another appearance by Rubrik tomorrow. So if that is something that tickles your fancy, that is going to be happening tomorrow, Friday, October 13th at noon Eastern, which is, of course, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Take a look at those and sign up right now. And with that, everyone, we are done with today's event. It was so great to be on with you. I want to thank all of our presenters today for putting together awesome presentations. The Q&A and the insights, or the insights in the Q&A, were fabulous. Such good stuff. I want to thank all of our participants for making this event possible today. Great to have on Rubrik and 1111 Systems and Rackspace. They're the ones who make it possible for us to be with you here. So thank you to all of them. And finally, last but not least, I want to thank each of you attendees. I love being on with you and spending this time together. Thank you for spending this time with me and with Actual Tech Media on our EcoCast. Thanks for all of your great questions. And that does it, folks. You can get back to the rest of your day. And I hope the rest of that day is fantastic. We'll see you next time.